Greetings, welcome to Mintaka Mermaid. Today I thought we could use this video as an exercise. I wanted to make a video on the question of are you fighting or facing your inner critic? And this is something that comes up a lot with clients, and they feel it's something that sort of affects them still. And the main pointer of this video would be to say that your inner critic doesn't necessarily have to be working against you. So I thought we could tune into some smoky quartz, and I want you to take a moment to connect to the crystals and have a think about who your inner critic is. So when I delve into some shamanic healing and I look at the inner critic and where the critic comes from and who that critic is, a lot of the time it boils down to being a subconscious part of yourself. And as there is a higher self, there is also a shadow self. And I want you to see your critic as being the in-between. So your critic doesn't need to be working against you, just as your higher self doesn't need to be working for you, positive all the time. And what I mean by that is, if you take a moment to connect to your higher self, you may find that it shows you at times certain decisions aren't the best, or perhaps, it can be honest with you in ways that aren't necessarily super positive. Sometimes we have to flow with the good and the bad, or the unexpected. So it's all about balancing these two positions for all good outcomes. For example, your higher self will say no when the time is right, if something isn't right for you. Your inner critic is going to do the same, but your inner critic is also going to tell you what's good for you in a backwards way. So, as stated, your critic may have a backwards way of asking you to say yes to yourself. It's asking you to go deeper. Where the problem arises is when we listen to the inner critic, what we do with that information afterwards. So sometimes we have to dissect the inner critic. Can you see past the mistruths that it's going to throw at you? Can you allow it to talk to you without caging yourself in full belief of the initial critic's words to you? I feel with the critic, if you can see past certain reactions, brain training, and go a little deeper into questions with yourself and your inner critic, it can show you some golden nuggets, some really golden truths that lie past its tough exterior. And it will sort of bliss you with inner truth right to the core if you can use your mind correctly. So it can showcase deep-rooted fears, it will show you your anxieties, it will show you past hurts, some naivities, but within this seemingly self-hurtful process, if you can delve deeper and look closely, your inner critic is actually illuminating things to you. It's showing you things. What maybe you need to look a little deeper in? What do you need to heal? What do you need to awaken in you to change, to bring growth, to access a consciousness to healing these parts within you? So look at it as your illuminator of illusions. You may start to process your inner critic a little bit differently. And I think the trick is to meet your self-critic. You face it, you face you, that version of you. But the trick is to not confront it and face it in a battle. You're almost putting down the fight and you're asking to meet in truth. Now, it may take you a little while to decipher this truth. That is your job. That's your process on the way to inner healing. You have to delve in there and find out what that truth is. And that is the inner truth at its very center. So for example, if your critic says, I'm no good, you're no good, it's not good enough, I'm terrible, my life is terrible, you have to access these thoughts as they arise, and you have to meet your critic halfway and delve into that process. And a lot of you have probably already done this subconsciously. And consciously, when you tell yourself, look, I know that's not true, that's maybe not truth, but you still have to work through the process of where that thought comes from, why that thought has come to be in your mind as that seed, and then we have to peel away at it and break it back down. So the trick here is, once you're ready to face your critic with acceptance, you can start to learn to balance both sides, the light and the shadow, and get the equilibrium of both of these powers and how they can actually work for you and not against you. You don't want to let the critic voice take over. It puts us into stagnation. It can stop us from doing things. It can start to affect confidence in some people. You want to use your critic when you meet it as a voice to show you where you're going to work on and project through those critical self-thoughts, feelings, and actions. What this allows you to do in your personal growth is create and hold boundaries a lot stronger as well. You will start to become more aware of not only talking to yourself better, but using your energy and holding your boundaries better. And it's finding truth in the internal voices, aversions, and egos, because both are aspects of truth. You know, your inner critic talks to you in certain ways for a reason. You have to find out what that reason is. What traumas, what hurts come up for you, why the brain has consistently chosen that neural pathway for you to decipher. And once you get to the internal truth of it all, you can actually balance these truths. You will find out where there's truth, where to heal, where to move on from, and you will find out where it's okay to accept certain feelings and parts of yourself. And in that acceptance will come healing anyway. I hope that makes some sense to you. The truth is basically deciphering them. We have many beliefs, some are healthy, some are unhealthy. Your inner critic's going to help you get through those beliefs. Is what your inner critic voice telling you, or your inner voice telling you, really true? And it's about the perseverance. Once you get through this and you understand your inner critic, you can look at your inner critic as being a version of you if that's easier. If that's easier to face a version of you or someone else, you can do that. So you find a certain inner power within it as you go forward, especially in personal and spiritual growth. So I would say, don't be scared to access your inner critic. There's no fight when it comes to the inner critic. You just need to hold space. You need to hold space for that voice and that version. And you're going to let the critic talk. What is it saying to you? You're going to take a moment to understand where that's come from, or what that voice, what that critic is perhaps trying to tell you. Because your critic isn't going to outright say, this is why. You have to do the work, almost. You have to find out why that neural pathway is there. Seems a little hard, but once you've mastered it, it's a great process. You want to then respond to this and ask questions to yourself, like we've been over. Is this true? Where's that come from? Why am I feeling this? Why is that voice there? And then you want to respond instead of reacting as you decipher these deeper truths and allow for this growth to take place. An important aspect of this is not allowing yourself to sit and wallow in the inner critic. I think it's very important when you do this kind of work that you are able to give yourself space and time to work through it without allowing yourself to then wallow or sit with certain things that may come up. You are allowed to kind of distance and come back in as you feel is right. Certain things may be overwhelming, but as things come up, they come up to be released. So we don't want to be holding on to them. We want to be releasing them. Whether that's emotions, angers, frustrations. And a good idea is to follow a principle that you find is beneficial for yourself. That could be writing down what your critic says, taking a diary of these interactions with your inner critic, You might find it helpful to burn that paper afterwards. You might want to find a way to release in doing something so that you're not sitting holding on to things that are then going to keep you in a place that is stagnating you from moving forward. If you allow it and you access it the right way, your inner critic will have a laugh with you. But it's not there to big you up. It isn't there to tell you, that's great, job well done. So be aware when you come into asking questions to your inner critic, it's not going to give you praise, because that's not its job. That's not what it's there for. You will have to hold space for yourself to give yourself praise. And this builds self-assuredity when we look at our healing. You're going to say, well, this is why, or this is this thought process, this is how I feel, and you're going to commend yourself for getting to these conclusions. And then you're going to give yourself that healing space and give yourself that time. So to summarize, you aren't going to fight your inner critic. You're going to allow it a voice. Get a little jovial with your inner critic. It will have a laugh with you at times. It just won't pat you on the back. But I definitely think that rather than running from this, we need to access it on a different level to understand why. When we do this, your inner critic is going to work for you. It's going to illuminate everything that might be standing in your way to betterment of self, betterment of your processes, brain process, and betterment of your actions forward in life. I hope you found this helpful today. If there's any questions, please put them in the comment box down below. Please feel free to share your experiences. If anyone would like further information on how to work through this inner critic, I'd be more than happy to offer you my free advice through my shamanic healing practices. I think it's very important that we help each other along this journey and understand how to access these things correctly and work with them in a beneficial way. So, blessings from the mirror. Thank you for joining me today. Take care.